guys, I'm here with another start to finish for you today, and this is a Kaisercraft 3D wall art. They actually come in a number of different options, but I've chose the Live, Laugh, Love one to do as I just liked it the most. So what you can see me doing right now is just covering all the pieces in a couple of layers of white gesso, and I do this just so that the papers will adhere better and so that the back really doesn't look quite so messy. Next you'll see me using some black gesso as I decided to do one of the pieces in a contrasting colour. Next I choose my paper, and this is quite an old collection. This is Meadowlark by My Mind's Eye, and I draw around each board and then I use my cutter to cut them out. Then what I do is I use a corner rounder on the edges so that the edges go better with the boards that I'm cutting them out for. Next you'll see me using my Tim Holtz distress tool to distress round the edges of all the pieces of paper. The ones that you can see that are mainly white with the back black script just get left as they are, but the contrasting piece I then go around with a Tim Holtz distress ink in black soot just so that it suits the blackboard a little bit better. Once I'm happy that all the pieces are the right size, I use some glue then to adhere the pieces of paper down, and I'm actually using Aleene's tacky glue here. I put it on and then rub it with my finger just to spread it out so that all the paper is the same amount of wet, as I find that that dries better, and then I rub it down with a piece of tissue. The chipboard butterfly that I've just got out is by Scrap Effects, and I'm just trying to organise where I want things. Now I'm taking the back pieces and I'm lining them up against a ruler to try and work out whereabouts I want to stick all the boards onto the back pieces and where I want things to go. So what I do is stick those back pieces down with a bit of E6000, and I just use hot glue just to hold it in place whilst the E6000 is drying. I start with the two outer ones and then I fit the two inner ones in the middle and space them correctly. I then leave the E6000 overnight to dry and come back and embellish tomorrow. Now I'm moving on to the chipboard butterfly that I showed you earlier, and I actually start by covering that entirely in gesso. Butterfly is entirely dry, I then go ahead with embossing it, and I use two Personal Impressions powders for this, one in black super sparkle and one in opaque white, as well as a wow embossing powder in vintage champagne, and I just use those three different colours in three different areas, and I use an embossing pen to try and blend those embossed colours all together, and I am so pleased with how this butterfly turned out. It ends up being absolutely beautiful. Next, I I move on to embossing the sentiment, the live, laugh and love, and I use the same embossing powders to do that. So in some places I use the embossing pad, and in some places I go around with the pen if it hasn't taken very well, and to blend the colours a bit better together. Black isn't dark in some places, I go back over the black with the same embossing powder again, just to get a better effect and a better look, and also to curve a bit more around the edges to make each word quite well defined. Once that's done, I bring the boards back over and I start embellishing. The two laces that you can see me using here are from Trésor Deluxe, and I actually stick them on with some Fabri-Tac. I run them round right the way to the other side so that they adhere well, and also so that there's no cut lines down the side. Then I go ahead and get out some flowers and begin embellishing with the flowers. The spray I use is from Prima, and I also use a combination of flowers from Wild Orchid Crafts and Iron Roses. The doilies that you can see me sticking down right now are some vintage doilies from my stash, and I'm currently just trying to work out my placement and stuff with the sentiment and the butterfly. What I'm doing with the sentiment now is I'm just adding some liquid pearls, so I'm using the white colour on the black and I'm using the pewter colour on the white, just to give it some extra added texture. Next I remove all the green leaves from the flowers, as I don't want any green showing. Die cuts that you're about to see me use are from Sizzix, the leaves as well as the flowers, and I'm just going back over some of the butterfly with the perfect pearls. What I'm doing now is edging around those die cuts with a chalk edger from Prima in white, just to blend them a little bit better into the background before I stick them down. Now that the hearts are stuck down, I'm beginning to adhere the flowers, and I'm just using hot glue for adhering all the flowers on. I also then go ahead and add some embellishments onto the flowers. I use some embellishments from Wild Orchid Crafts, and also a really pretty flower with some sprays coming out of it from Craft Supplies 1. Once all the flowers are adhered, I decide to adhere the sentiment, and I actually use some foam tape for this, and I used 3 layers of foam tape as I want this sentiment to be really dimensional, the same as I've just made the flowers. This was quite a chore, this took quite a long time to do, so I've sped this up quite well for you. Here I'm removing the backing from the foam tape and placing my sentiment where I want it. I then add the same foam tape to the butterfly, however I end up taking that off and just sticking the butterfly with Fabri-Tac a bit later on. Then I take those leaf die cuts that I cut out earlier and I start adding them a little around my flower cluster. I also then use a Martha Stewart punch to cut out some butterflies and add a couple of butterflies as well. And the main butterfly that I use on the sentiment, I add a dot of white perfect pearls to the centre just to tie everything together. And that completes my project. I hope you'll stay watching for the still photos. I'm really pleased with how well this turned out. I think this is so pretty and will make a fabulous addition to our new bedroom. Thanks guys, see you soon. Bye.